Now, the problem here that we happen to encounter in our society is the public opinion of a person that carries a gun. Okay. And now I will admit here that I'm generalizing somewhat, but I don't think I'm that far off. And if you wanna wrangle with me on this, then you can. But the first thing I would say about the public opinion about guns is that some people are assuming that you want to hurt somebody, that you're kind of itching for someone to try to come and mug you so you could shoot them, that you're itching for something to pop off somewhere at the store so you could be the guy with the gun and save the day. And I'm not saying that there might be people that are like that, that wait their whole lives for that moment where they can, shoot their weapon. But generally speaking, that's not true. Generally speaking, people that carry firearms do so for protection, okay? If you've ever done any kind of security or any kind of armed security, which I've been a part of, at different points of my life, what you'll understand is that you're not there to try to hurt anybody, and you're not carrying your firearm because you want to hurt someone that day. You're carrying your firearm because if something were to happen, if someone were to come harm the protectee, the person that you're protecting, let's say, you want to be able to defend them, defend yourself as well. Okay, so the mindset is different. And one thing that you'll find if you actually talk to gun owners is that this is generally the way that they think about these things. They don't want to find themselves in a situation where they cannot defend themselves, the people they love, their property, that kind of thing. Now, the other thing is similar. Okay, so we have the assumption that, well, maybe they just want to hurt somebody. Maybe they just want to shoot their gun at somebody at some point in their life. That's one assumption. The second point is somewhat related to that. It is that some people just feel threatened by the fact that someone owns a gun, even if it's illegal. They just feel threatened. They think that you shouldn't have that because it threatens me. It makes me feel a certain way. And well, there's a problem with that, isn't there? Because you may be a docile person. We talked about the violent versus the docile person last week, and we may touch on that here just briefly. But the idea there is something like, hey, I don't like guns. I don't like knives. I don't like blood. I don't like any of that. And so I'm a pacifist, whatever it might be. And I want to personally never carry that. But then to push that further and say, well, neither should you. This is where we come into some problems. Now, honestly, I don't know how much of the population actually thinks that way. I don't know. I don't have the numbers on that. But it seems to me when I observe, politicians, I don't think they necessarily think about it that way, because most politicians, at least, the high level politicians, they have security guards that have weapons. And they may even have their own weapons at home. Who knows? And so clearly there's going to be a different way of thinking about these things at different levels and with different people. But either way, one could be against guns, let's say, or against the Second Amendment itself. And I actually was searching this, and it's amazing how many people ask this question. Why don't we just do away with the Second Amendment? Why don't we just repeal it? Why do we even need it? Let's get rid of it. We should just confiscate all guns. It's these very broad terms that people utilize without really thinking of the dangers, again, of disarming the citizens. And this is why I want to talk about this, because if I can at least get you to think about this in a different way, not because I want you to go, be a Republican or something like that, or vote for my guy, because these rights they're not about Democrat or Republican. They're really about your natural rights. Okay. for your ability, for example, with the Second Amendment, to be able to defend yourself. So we have to ask then, if the public opinion is negative, well, what drives that negative public opinion about guns? And I think we have to at least think about this just for a little bit. And I think part of that is that gun control laws, for example, disarm people. And if I don't have a gun, well, maybe you shouldn't have a gun either. And the problem to that, though, is that criminals keep guns, right? And unarmed people know that criminals have guns. And so what happens? Well, they want to keep pushing the gun laws further. Okay, so it works something like this. At least I think it works something like this. You have a gun control law, and a certain amount of the population says, okay, these are the gun control laws, and maybe I can't have all these guns, and so I'm being disarmed. Okay, maybe you have one gun instead of 10 or 5 or whatever it is. Or maybe now you have none because it becomes so annoying to try to carry a gun, or there's so many laws that if you fire your weapon, you're going to have to answer to 5 different agencies, and it's just going to be a headache. And because it's such a headache, I'm just going to not have one. It's easier, right? And then I kind of understand that perspective as well. It's always, if you're carrying, if you're someone who carries, you always got to be careful where you're going. I can't go in that store because they have a policy. And so it's tough, right, to try to navigate these things. And you got to do your best that you can. But I understand, that sometimes people get a little overwhelmed with it. They're just like, I'm not going to carry at all. And I won't even have one at home. It's just too dangerous. I'm not going to deal with it. Well, the problem with that is that the minute you're disarmed, well, you want the other person to be disarmed too. But because there are people, and in this case, I'm thinking of criminals in particular, that are never going to give up their guns, right? I mean, that's just the reality of it. They're never going to give up their arms, never. And that they are willing to hurt you with that. And your knowledge of that is going to cause you to say, well, then we need more gun control laws. And I think we kind of see this happen every time there's a shooting, right? Every time there's a mass shooting anywhere in the United States, the typical talking point is we need more gun control. We need more gun laws. We need to be able to push this further, and further. And the problem with that is that it kind of feeds on itself. And at some point, I think we need to just, stop and ask ourselves, wait, what is the danger of disarming the people? Okay, and that's what we want to kind of get to here. The consequence, of course, of gun control laws, if you were to push this all the way to its logical conclusion, is that only the state is left with guns. Okay. And they'll take the guns away even from the criminals. They'll hunt them down like dogs and take away their guns. And then nobody has, but only the state. You'll never see the state going, throwing their guns away. You'll never see that. It's just not going to happen. Okay.